They say a man's home is his castle, but what if the walls could whisper his secrets? What if, behind locked doors, a truth more terrifying than betrayal lay hidden in plain sight? In the grandest house in the city, a man of immense wealth remarried a beautiful village girl after the passing of his first wife. His new bride, young and full of life, expected warmth, passion, and companionship. But instead, she found herself trapped in a cold marriage. Her husband, despite all his riches, refused to touch her. And every night, long after the world had fallen silent, he would slip out of bed and vanish into the upstairs room, the one room no one else had ever entered. Its key never left his neck. At first, she tried to ignore it, but desire has a way of turning patience into frustration, and frustration into dangerous longing. And so, a forbidden romance began. What she did not know was that secrets, like debts, must always be paid. And in the end, the price for love would be higher than she ever imagined. The house was the grandest in the city of Kampala, a towering mansion with polished floors, winding staircases, and chandeliers that cast golden light upon its halls. Servants scurried like ghosts, tending to a life of opulence. But in the heart of this grand home, there was one room that no one had ever entered. One room whose key never left the master's neck. His name was Django, the wealthiest man in town. His first wife had died under unclear circumstances, and after a long period of mourning, he had taken a new wife, Amina. She was young, radiant, and full of life, plucked from the village to fill the void his late wife had left. But despite her beauty, despite the warmth of her embrace, Django never touched her. Every night, she would wake to an empty bed. She would lie in the dark, listening to his footsteps fade up the stairs, then the heavy click of a door locking behind him. In the morning, he would return as if nothing had happened. Amina's patience withered. What kind of marriage was this? Why had he married her at all if he had no desire for her? And what was behind that locked door? At first, she buried her frustration, telling herself that time would change things. But time only deepened the loneliness. She longed to be held, to be loved, to feel wanted. And in that cold, empty house, desire turned its gaze elsewhere. It started with stolen glances. The gateman, Malik, was a strong man, sharp-eyed and confident in a way that made Amina feel noticed, something Django never did. He spoke to her with charm, made her laugh when she had almost forgotten how. Then came the touches, light and fleeting, but enough to set her skin ablaze. Before long, they were meeting in hidden corners, in the shadows of the house where no one looked. The more Django ignored her, the deeper she fell into Malik's arms. But wealth breeds suspicion. Django was no fool. He saw the way his wife's gaze lingered too long when the gateman passed. He noticed the slight shifts in her mood, the newfound energy in her step. And so he laid a trap. One morning he called Malik and Amina. "The kitchen needs restocking," he said. "Take the car and go buy what is needed." Freedom. A whole day without Django's watchful eyes. A chance to steal more than just moments. But what Django had not anticipated was that his trap would reveal something far worse than infidelity. As soon as they left the house, the lovers did not go to the market. They had decided there was only one way to be together forever. Django had to die. Amina had thought about it before, how different life would be if she were free of him. And Malik, desperate to claim her without secrecy, was willing to do whatever it took. They sought out a man who could supply them with a gun. But Django had anticipated their betrayal. He had sent a trusted guard to follow them, and by evening he knew exactly what they had done. When they returned home, he did not send them away. Instead, he made a trip to the police station, not before he left them a chilling message. I know what you are planning. If anything ever happens to me, the police will know where to look. And so from today, you both have no choice but to protect my life with whatever loyalty remains of your miserable lives. Fear gripped Amina and Malik. They apologized, swore they would never think of anything like that again, then returned to their roles as wife and gateman. But one thing, however, bugged them. How did Django know their plan? Well, you could say they had failed to realize that Django had power, and power meant knowing things others did not. Months later, the incident seemingly blew over, and Malik now kept his distance. But Amina wasn't one to give up. She knew how she felt at nights with Django, and also with Malik, and the difference was telling. If she was to be trapped in this house, if her plan had failed, she needed to know the truth about that locked room and why her husband kept visiting every night. One night, as Django lay deep in sleep, she pressed a bar of soap against the key hanging from his neck, making a perfect imprint. The next day, Malik took the soap to a key cutter, and within hours, they had a copy. That night, when Django disappeared into the room as always, Amina pretended to have fallen into deep sleep, then eventually followed him upstairs, secretly like a shadow. What she discovered next was the shock of her life. She overheard moans and groans emanating from the room, like a man was making out with a woman. The closer she got, the louder the noise. Oh, so my husband has been cheating on me? This is why he refuses to touch me, she whispered to herself in disbelief and anguish. The next day, she told Malik what she had seen, but he didn't believe her. He had never seen his boss come home with any other woman, ever. After much persuasion, he finally relented, and they decided to go check the room out themselves. With only them at home that mid-morning, they walked upstairs towards the upper room. Then, heart-pounding, Amina fitted the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open. A stench hit them first, something rotten, something wrong. Then they saw her. The body of Django's first wife lay inside, preserved, her skin stretched tight over her bones. Dressed in a fine gown, her hands folded over her stomach, she lay on the bed like a sleeping bride. The room was filled with the scent of flowers, an attempt to mask the decay. Amina staggered back, horror clawing at her throat. Django had never let go of his first wife. Not in life and not in death. He had spent every night locked away with her, loving her even as she rotted. Malik turned and grabbed Amina's hand. We need to leave. For the first time, she agreed. At sunrise, they packed their things. They would leave the house, leave the city, start fresh somewhere else. But before they could step outside, police stormed the mansion. Django was dead. His guard had killed him in the early hours of the morning, striking him down for a large sum of money he had been meant to deliver. The same guard who had followed Amina and Malik was now on the run with the lump sum. But the police didn't know that. So, Amina and Malik were taken in, beaten, and interrogated. The police had every reason to suspect them, given their record. We are innocent, they cried. We were leaving. But their tears fell on deaf ears. Days later, the truth came out. The guard was apprehended at the train station, trying to flee the city with all the cash. CCTV cameras from Django's home would later reveal how the guard had struck his boss with a stick from behind and ran off with the briefcase of cash. The police gathered from his interrogation that he overheard Django on call talking about delivering some briefcase of cash to the governor, and there, he decided to take his chance. With that, Amina and Malik were released. They were free. But was it truly freedom? Amina had once thought love was the key to happiness. That wealth without passion was emptiness. But now she understood. There are things far worse than loneliness. As she and Malik stepped into the world beyond that grand house, the words of an elder echoed in her mind, words she had once ignored. Not all prisons have walls. Some we build ourselves,